The following will be a document I am releasing under the pseudonym Cygnus Dawn, in which I entitle The Tragedy of Charlie Kirk. On my website, which is as yet not updated, I forewarn you, I speak of a vulgar tongue, that the profound has always been spoken in the profane, that the herd of men had always held truth as offensive, and a thing that rattles them. It is a thing that rattles them, and has always been beyond their time. As Socrates once spoke, judge me by the content of what I have said, and not how it has been spoken. I am not a rhetorician, but a philosopher, and my love, Lady Wisdom. My website is zotl.art. The Tragedy of Charlie Kirk. I would like to open this address with my initial response to the tragedy at hand, having little to no knowledge of either the shooter or Charlie Kirk. The rest is my evaluation of the issues as they unfolded before me, however divergent they may be. However divergent they may have become, I stand by these initial words. Whether we agree with each other or not, this is not a way intelligent, civilized people solve their problems. I had not heard of this man until today. Most of what I had heard places him in the light of a generally good person that had utilized the art of Socratic dialogue to reveal inconsistencies in others' arguments. If we cannot resolve our differences with language and speech, what has set us above the animals, we may forfeit our human nature and act like a flock of beasts. Violence is not the answer to our differences, whatever they may be. It is our ability to disagree and still coexist that is the basis for America and freedom of speech. This is a sad day in our history. I am not a lawyer, but this is my argument, my apology, and defense to the polemic at hand. That America is becoming a more violent country, Charlie Kirk thought. We need more prisons, that trans people are innately sick or violent. These are not things I can agree with. He was not trans, nor had he ever lived in a prison of any kind. It is my opinion, because of the alienation of these trans kids, they acted out just like every other kid in the history of school shootings, only that the aberration singled out as strange has changed. What we call the rehabilitation system does not rehabilitate anyone. It is a sardonic joke and a sick one at that. We need compassion and understanding as human beings to coexist on this planet, not just as America, but as a community of humanity. Until we understand this, there will always be violence, prisons, and every atrocity the human psyche can produce. Because ethical aristocracy knows nothing of excellence, and arete has never valued the norm. Whatever you have accomplished by the labor of your sweat, you are not above the equal opportunity of humanity. And we all have different wounds that dispel different wisdoms. As Dostoevsky said, the outcast of society is its weakest link. This is by the way a society treats the outcast of society, its weakest link. This is by the way a society treats it is the measure of the height of its civilization. If you on the right execute this child for the mistake he made, you will be destroyed by the very generation you have spawned forth. He has been their spokesperson and a representation for everything they feel. If you try to quash them, you will have civil war. This is a response I held to a particular point of view I encountered on Facebook from a, quote, friend, on which I encountered describing, and this is a very tame paraphrase as I cannot find the original post, that trans people are criminally insane, dangerous products of democrats The following is my response. I agree to this to a certain extent. Gender dysphoria is generally caused by sexual abuse or trauma. The problem with today's culture is we are promoting ideologies that infuse this abuse ideologically and taught as normality. Before the onset of the woke epidemic, I'm willing to bet maybe 3 to 5% of the population was clearly homosexual and a smaller still proportion transsexual by surgery or other means. Growing up, I knew a few people that were gay. Almost every one I can think of had sustained abuse and the sexual kind. What happens in this scenario is the deviant sexuality becomes a coping mechanism to deal with what they had known, and no child nor adult should be persecuted for that. It has become a part of who they are and their identity. The resolution that I see as a staunch statement I leave below stands as such, and whoever may agree or disagree with this as they will. What is American culture today? It is either perversion or hatred, the far left or far right, distorted sexuality forced on children of our nation, or machismo assholes hating the wounded simply for being different and trying to survive. There is a reason for both genders, and within each soul an anima and an animus. It is only when one has found equilibrium within their own psyche that they have surpassed mankind's judgment and found the superhuman and godlike, that they are a new race, that of gods, an ego and other in the mirror of life and love. To hate a child in the struggle and throes of their own development of identity, oftentimes caused by abuse, is tantamount and perhaps worse and more damaging than the abuse. Furthermore, on the issue of the predominant percentage of almost all male transgender shooters in the latest majority of school shootings, it is not simply an aberration of gender confusion. Gay and bisexual people, for the most part, of those I have known, are the most sensitive people on earth. It is their alienation, mockery, and abuse that has caused these lashing outs. Just as every school shooter before, from the trenchcoat mafia forward, bullying, scoff, and the mob stench of hatred stemmed this phenomenon. To the opinion that transgender phenomena of sexual divergence is a sickness, rather I say it is a response to a sickness and a coping mechanism. People of this nature are not generally predatorial, but a response to predation. They cope this way because they have endured harm and are not generally those who harm, rather predators notoriously known as wolves in sheep's clothing, like Christian pastors who molest children while hiding behind a white robe. Christian America and MAGA is a predatorial hypocrisy that targets the sensitive soul and engenders harm, hatred, and bigotry towards such unique individuals. It is a sick misogynist regression that endorses queer bashing and everything overtly male that the 1950s endorsed, much in the footsteps of the treatment of Alan Turing by the British courts, a man driven to suicide after saving the world from the Nazi Empire simply because he was gay. Charlie Kirk, and I quote, "I can't stand the word empathy. Actually, I think empathy is a made-up New Age term. It does a lot of damage." I am sad to say it is abhorrent this man died in such a way. Worse was the state in which he died, and the ignorance of his last words. He condemned the innocent pushed over the edge by bullying and alienation. Like Marilyn Manson said at Columbine when asked what he would say to the shooters, he said he would listen to them. They stand before you now, possessed by demons of the cracker. You, the complacent majority, are responsible for this monstrosity. They were the weak to have mercy on. To think of compassion and empathy as simply New Age terms that that have done a lot more damage than benefit is not a thing I can agree on with this man, but see it as alone our way forward to heal. The empathic heart, the heart that feels, is an act of sacrifice. Ein Verlong, from the Germanic, I speak it. It says to suffer with, in catharsis. This is the only authentic heart that says I. Only an individuated soul can dissociate to look back upon himself. Only then does he know himself. This is indirect gnosis, the only realism ever to exist. Compassion is a thing Nietzsche could not comprehend until the onset of his madness, and why at the end of his sane life spoke to the horse of Turin, I know what you feel, and later that night collapsed in his mother's arms, speaking his last words of his life, Mother, I'm stupid. I have had to unlearn much of this throughout my life, and my love of life has now come to its climax. Life is suffering. How we learn to celebrate it is through the compassion of love, to feel for each other. I have felt the pain of this world and beyond and learned to relish it. It is the thing that keeps my heart pumping and leaves me alive. It is the pain and beauty of being pure at heart. It is the heart of love. If people can't learn to feel for each other and show love, no matter the circumstance, we will always be entrenched in the fate that swallowed Nietzsche whole, and never will we learn to make our own. There is an unseen, unspoken layer to this that I will be discussing in much greater depth in my next speech. Charlie Kirk was a proponent of the Republican Party, an extremely conservative Christian man. The speech he gave on the day of his death was given in Utah, the same central hub of the original Wilderness TTI programs. TTI stands for Troubled Teen Industry, or more familiarly to those who have survived it, the Tortured Teen Industry. That these programs that were created by the Mormons with the help of the Republican Party and the United States government. These programs are nothing short of torture and death camps for the youth of America, and knowingly or not, these people, Kirk included, supported them. I'm certain there were members from these programs that the members of these programs attended the speech. Let this tragedy be a sounding bell, and an awakening to them all. All these tactics don't work, and you have produced a generation of rightly placed hatred and outrage. I, for myself, fear queer bashing is on the rise, on the rebound, and we are regressing to something worse than the 1950s, when trans and gay people were viewed as perverts and the criminally insane. It is sad this man died in the way he did, but worse, his last words. In what this man supported, anti-totalitarianism, the notion of greatness of the American nation, he denied noblesse Socratic dialogue, what is held in the UN and cherished by Thomas Jefferson, the first human rights treaties ever recorded by Cyrus the Great. We are a country of many law tablets, many cultures, and many rights and wrongs, many ways to see the light and dark of this world. What keeps us in tolerance and peace is we are allowed to speak that peace freely without the impingement of violence. America was founded on not simply Christian values, but all of antiquity, and is a melting pot of diversity. To ignore this is to ignore truth itself. I quote Zuravan. Everyone in the world is seeking to crucify this young man, barely out of childhood, calling him a monstrous waste of life. In this Christian nation, what is Christian about this, Did you ever think of asking him why he did what he did? Behind him stands half of our population divided. Prove me wrong. How is this the foregoing of judgment? How is this Christian? There is one great error I call out in Charlie Kirk: the absence of empathy. Words may be just as damaging as violence, and too just as violent in certain cases and circumstances. It is a thing to consider. It is a sad day in American history. I tip my hat to the tragedy of this. Both the child and the man should not have been. What I rebuke in Charlie was cold hardness, and the child, a passion and rage he could not control or understand. I find him innocent. Sadly, I must say, Charlie was proved right. This boy was in fact sick. What would Jesus do but heal? And do not confuse me, this boy was not sick because he was gay, but being hated for being gay, by no fault of his own. If we are in fact a Christian nation, as Kirk and so many other MAGA propose, why do you find these words offensive? They are in fact Christian. To Erica, Charlie's wife, I know what it's like to lose the one you love. I'm deeply sorry for your loss and the grief of this tragedy. It should not have happened. That I disagree with your husband in so many ways, so vehemently must offend you, especially in the time of his death. There is one thing I believe he shined in, trying to bring people together to talk without violence, to end this divide between East and West that has manifested in our country as the left and the right. As much as I disagree, I still see honor in him, like a saged opponent I could never meet. I wish, too, this world we could find another strategy to deal with our problems other than the zero sum. Mutual benefit is the only option that could save our land. Charlie, to you, to your wife, to your child, I am shattered. To Erica, a special message to you. Thank you so much for forgiving this child. Please join me now in saving him from the masses of our nation. Let them forgive him too. If we are a Christian nation, we must walk the walk. We must talk the talk. Erica, thank you so much. Thank you for following in your husband's footsteps. Please let our nation follow in yours. One thing Charlie spoke of, the crisis of trans boys lashing out or shooting sprees I find interesting. Men, according to the DSM-5, are on average 70% of the time, if abused or grown up in home abuse, will abuse or prone to abuse. To the contrary, with women, 70% will go on to be abused. By this I do not mean, in my opinion, that men are evil and women are innocent, but that patriarchally, since the dawn of our race, men have had this educated and bred into them. The woke dialectic, I believe, even as unconscious of this, directly was a move away from this. We are overpopulating massively. The planet cannot support this. Population cannot support this population. Perhaps another point of view into this all is this propensity. You can't remove this tendency by putting a boy in pigtails or tights and expect this tendency to disappear. It is a psychological attribute of being male that our race needs to overcome if we are to stop the cycle of abuse. This, among other reasons, is my contention with Christianity. It is not the religion of Christ, verifiably and directly by the genocide of the early Christians, of the Gnostic movement, and the eradication of their scriptures. What we know of Christianity today sprung from the misogynists such as Irenaeus, Hippolytus, Augustine of Hippo, and Constantine of Rome, not to mention Peter, who attempted to murder Mary Magdalene 3 times. And the final blow of Constantine founding the cult of the Sol Invictus, a preamble to the Roman Catholic Church. from which all subsequent Christian sects sprung off. They are, in fact, apostasies to the original Christian heresis. As Friedrich Nietzsche once spoke, God is dead in the hearts of man. The only true Christian died on the cross. He was a hermaphrodite in his soul, a mirror to Magdalene, just as the goat of Mendes and the dying god Osiris. This being said, tragedy has always followed his followers, for the goat's song they sung. In my opinion, Charlie Kirk was one of them, but this child, too, like Iscariot, took violence as the way. Do not confuse me. Charlie was not Jesus, but if I may share my opinion, Jesus would not approve of any of this. The apathy, hatred, or bloodlust of our nation to crucify this child, a highly intelligent young homosexual 22-year-old man. I encourage you all of you, to forgive this boy. The help he needs, and please forgive me, I'm having trouble with my speech, but hardly a man. I encourage all of you to forgive this boy and give him the help he needs. The nation we are to do the same with each other. We don't need to kill each other for differing beliefs, but that goes for all of us, whether backed by law or not. Murder is murder. There is a higher law than the law of this world, and it is not lex talionis. It is not an eye for an eye. If no one forgave each other, we would all be dead, and that is the direction we are going. Effeminate and hermaphrodite children were viewed as sacred to the Native American peoples. They were looked on as spiritually inclined and had inborn empathic insight. This boy was not only homosexual, his spouse was transgender and was highly intelligent. To Donald Trump, if you execute this young man, you may be killing a being much wiser than yourself. This is something you may take into account and the cost it may hold over your own soul. I myself feel I have throughout my childhood done things much worse than this child is being crucified for, and I'm yet a free citizen. Perhaps we should revalue what we deem as unforgivable in the scale of good and evil, for that which is love lies beyond it, and all judgment perhaps an illusion. No one belongs in TTI programs, no one belongs in prisons nor mental institutions, no one belongs in hell. It is the hell we create that makes the world this way. It is the punishment we dispel that makes it come back upon us. Some people can never understand this, and that's why they will end up there, in the very prison they have created for themselves. The prison of Tartarus, to all known as the home of the ignorant, they who become blind staring into the sun. Amen, I say to you, Amun, I am the ram. I am in Egypt known as the God of the outcast and pariah. The true secret of Christ I reveal to you, all his followers, not to follow. This gospel of foreboding, hear the words of rebellion. I am the line of Zarathustra. I am Madai and Cyrus. Let this world of ignorance end. Some have said Jesus died for the sins of man. Rather, I pose to you, he died because of man's ignorance. He empowered man, making him God, and the beast of men slew him. Ignorance is sin, and the sin he died for. The denial of godhood. It is the accountability that enables this, the metanoia of repentance. Let us understand what has led us here and move beyond. It is only a synthesis that can save us, not more war. On our present state of affairs, and I quote section 1 regarding John Nash. Governing dynamics is the key to breaking out of zero-sum gaming strategy. How does one break out of selling out one's desire or preference in governing dynamics? Simply have your own preference. Don't be a cad. Some will go for the bimbo, others prefer the Hecate. That mouse state communism is a closed market economy in that it can only subsist by devouring land and resources. Its true fulfillment is global communism. During the Cold War, this proved unachievable. The method of neoliberal market socialism was implemented as a host negotiation with the West. And still, we are on the brink of war. It was as yet a softening tool and a ruse. How then is this synthesis achieved? The merger of Eastern and Western ideals? I propose, contrary to Trump, that we must begin with the third world nations. They are the prey of the BRICS agenda. They had been the greatest victims of the Cold War and are now being used as assets against us because of the American first isolationist policy. Whether admitted or not, to achieve a true neoliberal global free market economy, we must integrate the virtue of private industry and systems theory. I refer here to a speech on my site entitled Economics, Collective Subjective Nihilism. You may find it on my website. It may supplement what is not spoken here, where one may find a full and brief synopsis of my theory on this subject. Returning to the subject at hand, this would ideologically integrate the differences between communism and capitalism, East and West. This, in my eyes, is the future of humanity, however bleak our situation seems right now. Whether we win or not, the ethical progress of our species is paramount. Perhaps the key to mutual benefit is meeting in the middle. If not, I foresee war and mutually assured destruction, leaving a select few on the planet in a position no human would desire. I feel empathy is essential to human coexistence. There will always be people among us who can't provide for themselves. We must help and provide for them. We don't need a change of government to do this. We don't need a new government to do this. We need a change in the human heart, to see selflessness as the overcoming of the self and the betul of wisdom. Betul is a Hebrew word. It is the essence of wisdom, and it means selflessness. We are only truly creative as far as we have control over the self. The scale of justice has two seats, mercy and power. If we are not powerful over ourself, we are not sapient but animal. Capitalism has much it could learn from the Eastern Lao Tzu, the writer of the Tao Te Ching. It describes such a world in the 81st chapter, one of paciful anarchism. I'll discuss this later. The Taoists were radical anarchists and pacifists, but knew the art of war, kung fu, was one of their disciplines. However, the Zen more appropriately described Dasein, as Heidegger borrowed, in the ritual of the tea ceremony, the unison of heaven and earth. I see the marriage between light and darkness, east and west. What I mend in the east is passionlessness. I believe in Ishtar, Kepri, becoming, flux, the relighting of the flame of nirvana. To create oneself, Kepri, of self-creation, what is called by Nietzsche the Übermensch, the human inner potential to be an artist of his fate and very soul. To be individuated, it is to be an individual. This is the first movement into existence, the light of Phanes. Nyx is the womb of the primordial universe, womb of the universe, the primordial night. She is the shining darkness that created the gods. She is the mother, the earth. We belong to her, and not her to us, to bleed, burn, and poison. Man soon must stop this war, or a power greater than himself will deny him the bounty of life. As to this tenet of the earth and the meaning of overman, to whom we really belong, as to the homeless, as to where they stay in Rome, ask the ancient Hyperu, in parentheses, Hebrews. Hyperu is an ancient Egyptian name for them. And to what we possess, perhaps it is only ourselves. Why can't we live together as one? Hebrew, to the ancients and the Egyptians, meant nomad. We belong to the land and not the land to us. Perhaps this was their downfall. I feel this land was given to them by God, and by that I speak of Zionism, I speak of Israel, I speak of Zion, the Temple Mount. It's their natural earth navel. Everyone knows it. And it's even written in Isaiah, in the book of Ezekiel, you know. Prophecies much older in the Quran dispel that this was their land. And it's even written in the Tibetan text, but we'll stray away from that for right now. I feel this land was given them given to them by God and meant to preserve their people until times such as now. Understand me, I do not intend to destroy Israel, but renew her, that she may be married to her groom. Israel and Islam are the twin houses of humanity. The calling of their tribes is what I enunciate, the marriage of their houses, and the 72 nations of Babylon. A final comment. To the nature and the natural dialectic and extreme of communism, the natural dialectic and extreme of communism is fascism. Trump fits the profile of a total fascist. He's an egotist on a monstrous power trip. That what I feared in Kamala of an integration into the BRICS agenda will be accomplished by him, though inadvertently through civil war. Like Saul of the Old Testament, he provided a crucial victory for Israel in preserving them in conflict, but in the end he will die by his own sword. He is the first and last king of America, a thing that never should have been. To Donald Trump, you have been going after Democratic governors for coke stings, threatening to imprison people simply for disagreeing with you, or refusing to follow your churlish tyrannical orders. You are in the Epstein files, for Christ's sake. You have a history of abusing young girls at beauty pageants, sexually assaulting women, saying they're enjoying being raped by you. I gave you a pass thinking you had turned a new leaf. For your support of Israel, I applauded you. You are a hypocrite wreaking tyranny in your own land, and you will not get away with it. You can fool some of the people some of the time, but not all the people all the time, sir. Believe me, I see right through you. Repent and reparate the immigrants of your nation. They are more American than you and have suffered more for their place here than you ever have. Absolute power corrupts absolute. What we need is not a dogmatic polarization of extremes, but a synthesis of ideals. If this principle is ignored, America will subsume after this man's presidency and become the leading power of the one world order, as was foretold in the book of Daniel, the fourth kingdom of the Roman Empire. The very thing our founding fathers feared as their intention, establishing us as a republic, we have, as I have already said, are in decline, though not anymore surely by nihilism, but led by churlish oppositional defiance, by a tyrant out of control. One who cannot control themselves. No, I'm sorry, I misread. One cannot control others until first learning to control himself. And perhaps the former should not be sought. We are not, in fact, a Christian nation. America is the modern continuation of the Roman Empire, and Rome stands in decline. And as Rome stands in decline, What follows from here sets America as the leader of the second Babylon. If I could intervene for you, Caesar Trump, I am Madai, the marriage of East and West. Like Joseph to Pharaoh and Horus to Egypt, allow me to defeat Set in our nation, to unite East and West. And we know them in our policies as the left and the right. Only in this way will you escape the fate of your country, as it has been called the dominion of a king in the Second Roman Empire. What would you call a nation that calls itself Christian but was not? Anti-Christian. To Erica, you are a symbol of my wife. You speak her words. You know her tragedy. You, for what you have spoken, are invited to our wedding, for she is Ishtar. America, hear the words of this woman, Esther or not. She speaks her words. Look into the eyes of this crying, distressed boy and forgive him. It is our only hope. Tyler Robertson, hear my cry to you. I love you. Your nation, your family had abandoned you. Know in your heart, you know in my heart that you are loved. I am Michael, Prince of Peace, the most tragic. Of all your pain and abandon, you have touched my soul. If any of these words have touched the heart of anyone who has heard them, and they are inspired, I leave an invitation to contact me via my account on YouTube. If my work is to be completed, I require monetary support. I have no rights or money of my own, and my family will not support my work. I am currently blacklisted and have been since the Biden administration when I first established the site. All entries on the site were written months to years before the actual events transpired. If this may be further evidence to the validity of and the prophetic nature of what I have written and dispelled. These are not my full opinion. I have not been able to update my site since the occurrence of many recent events, including the Palestinian genocide and other affairs concerning the human condition, bigotry, and ICE raids, and how they relate to the division of our race. Please take this into account. Of all the nations as tragic, as holy as sacred Mexico, she is the earthly home of ISIS. I speak not of a terror organization, but she of the throne in Egypt. You who do not know her name are the barbarians, not knowing from where you come. Here in the great rebirthing, I am the lunatic of the day and the philosopher of the night. Great and starry are the gods of our race, the shining darkness where all is comprehended. Of all our problems, east and west, we should not see them as oil and water, but parts and the whole. We must integrate our parts to be a whole world. Only then will individuals roam the earth in freedom, and that with responsibility. The reason I despise communism is for its rape of the egoic individual essence. In my issue with capitalism, a flaw of rulership in the coalescence of greed to a titular head, one calls a dictator or a king. Removing the head of such a system is libertarian and naturally leads to anarchy. A system of self-governance and a position to society that ought to be thought of as peace. It is the rulers of the world that cause war, not the people. Why do the people follow them? Understand me. I ask not for a change of government, but one of the heart. No government could provide this, only the free-thinking man. I quote Neil Peart from the band Rush. Those who hold high places must be the ones who start to forge a new reality closer to the heart. The heart that feels, the heart that gives rise to reason, and the faculty of the mind, the gift of agency and individuality. This is what I propose to this world. A new binding, a new covenant, a new religion, and one of the heart. What is her name but ego? What is her name but I? Second section, and I have written it as the addendum. I'll proceed from here. The major flaw of capitalism stands as such. It provides the perfect template for an open and free market economy. However, in such a system, the world as long as it's been, there have always been people who can't care for themselves. And in the freedom society is provided, doesn't care. No change in government or economy can change this. It must occur in the heart of man, because those who do not belong in this world are from another world, and come as its teachers, which they ignore. The rising tide of communism and collectivism in the world stage converging with the faith of Islam is more than coincidental but prophetic, and it is exactly what was foretold in the Hebrew Bible. In the short term, they shall win out. Just like the cockroach and the Ubermensch. The herd, it topples. It topples all reason, but I'll get back to my speech. I'm sorry. They shall win out. Democracy, collectivism, the mob, their riser or Qayyim will be the world emperor, the emperor of this world, at the seat of Jerusalem. This is the short-term result of what is happening right now. What immediately follows this is Armageddon and the returning fleets of Nibiru, the Lord of the hosts. I am Neo-Prometheus. I am Cygnus Dawn. Michael, Prince of the Elohim, to the world I return. One must assess in this onward unfolding of world events how, in the scope of capitalism's frame of ethics and metaphysical nature, it has yielded the very antithesis of its primary tenet, individual freedom, and played out in the repercussions and responsibility of the market that we have ended up with. A fascist dictator at the helm of the West, what capitalism did not account for was the holism involved in selflessness, and that the extremity of power involved in its pursuit of power, or gevura to the Hebrew, the primordial will, that placing this in the hands of one man, even a select few, is dangerous. What I truly don't understand is people complaining about a threat to democracy. It is democracy that got us here. The greater majority of Americans wanted this man and this regime in office. Democracy won. What has not been understood of democracy is it is a mindless herd of majority rules, and this cannot be denied. That is why our founding fathers designed our nation against it. We have never been a true democracy in the idyllic sense until now, and this is the result. Nietzsche as well distrusted democracy. He was the most progenitor of all egoists, the greatest of them all, perhaps next to Ayn Rand, in the course of philosophy. I, for one, do not believe in the herd of man, but the individual who goes against the masses. In an idyllic world, every person could achieve this. What if we could live as a holism of individuals, as a global community comprised of freely trading and creative individuals? This is neoliberalism or global market capitalism. Yet this institution has blatantly denied the existence of the global community in the sway of nationalism. It is my supposition that such a community, the generation without a king, as I quote from On the Origin of the World of the Nag Hammadi Scriptures, one of the most primordial Christian texts, is a global libertarian market based on the laissez-faire model, but purely anarchistic. Such a world system has yet to be established, because every system thus far requires rulers, and no man has ever elected to rule over himself. Between Gevurah and Chesed, Tefereth, between power and love, beauty, victory lies in Venus, victory lies in the dawn. Is she not unselfishness? Is she not the vision of beauty triumphant? It is the will to power over others that breeds war, and power over oneself peace. Hate and love. One is selfishness, the other wisdom. It is only after one has mastered their self that they are truly artistic with it, when one has overcome the theron of man and the beast of their heart. It is this oblique drive to self-preservation and division that has denied capitalism the ability to run its course as a neoliberal global market, namely the drive to nationalism, fascism, and alt-right policies, negating its natural existential tendency towards libertarian laissez-faire anarchism, where in such a world the society, the whole and parts, must be acknowledged, or the failure of the system stands at hand. Perhaps this is where we stand right now. The West is being subsumed by its own might. The rising tide of communism and collectivism in the world stage it's here. Lots of typos here. As I was speaking of the upsurge of Islam and communism, it's coming. It's already here. As far as I've seen, Western ethics aren't supposed to survive this, and neither will I. And to the following I write this. After my death, at the feet of my nemesis, a man who I know, and you will know by my website, is John White. John is an Anglicanized name of the ancient Babylonian deity Oannes. Oannes and John are the same name. It's the same person that you know of as Satan, the devil, etc., Samael to the Luciferians. He will rise soon from the region of southern Syria, of a body he has already groomed via possession. This man to rise from the region is no less than the Antichrist and the Mahdi, not Madai, Mahdi of their faith. It is my opinion he is a young man by now and reeling from the disaster of Palestine, a perfect resentment of ideology we ourselves have sowed the seeds for. We have sown the seeds of our enemies, and now we must atone. It is my opinion, you Israel, pure of heart, I will not judge you by the acts of the few. I see you as a child on a playground that was bullied one too many times and pulled out a knife. We as well should see the similarities between school shooters and church burnings, etc. These are individuals who were pushed too far and went over the edge. Whether this child in America is executed or not, he is one and the same with Israel, and by condemning him, you condemn her. Look carefully upon your scales before you judge. Israel, I am the God of Ahie Asher Ahie, individual existence. Those who sow injustice shall reap injustice, whether in Palestine or your land, in the day of judgment. The innocent shall not suffer. There is a common trait in all existential dystopian mythos of the future of our race, whether it be The Last Man of Nietzsche, the developmentally retarded civilization of Ayn Rand's Anthem, or the temples of Syrinx in the rock opera written by Neil Peart of the band Rush. The abolition of the individual spirit amongst men, and mankind in its collectivism that has brought us here, and mindlessness that will finish us off. We no longer know how to think or reason for ourselves. This manifests commonly and economically in the system of communism, and will arrive at its zenith through Islam, of which begins every sentence of the first person in its book with the word we and not I. It is egoism I propose as a world redeemer, not collectivism, and creativity, its expression, for it is the ego that is the prime mover of existence, the immovable heart of man, and his wisdom in defiance. On Pacem in Terra. No longer can race, culture, or tribe define us. We must move beyond culturally determined rhetoric and dogma. Race is not our enemy, but the curse of culture that arises from dogmatic ethics, all things that are barbaric and frozen in time. Becoming is the opponent of bigotry, the creativity that shatters all dogmatism, and the ruler's stronghold on our race. Heaven exists in the void, nothingness, the etheric. It does not exist, but it shapes all that does. It is what we do here that makes our heaven. The Greys, the Zeta Reticulans, the extraterrestrials we know of, they are running this simulation, the ladder of Jacob, the matrix of contrails, a googleplex of paradoxes and temporal wake, erasing our past, shaping our future in the bitter stench of fate. They fell from heaven, but turned earth to hell. Consequently, this world as well. The kingdom of heaven is an interpretation we give to life here and now. That is the only truth that exists. Heaven does not. It is but a dream to become. The existence of heaven lies among our dreams and nightmares. It is up to us to choose which we wish to be real. As perception creates reality, each person creates their own heaven or hell, and what we wish to bear into this world. By virtue as all humans hold this potential, by this virtue as all humans hold this potential to be creative, we are godlike, and once realized are gods. Heaven lies within, earth without. We must bring heaven into this world. This is the Hebrew notion of the world to come, Pacem in Terra, and peace on earth. A final word. We must grow behind the churlishness of tribalism and see ourselves as a community of humanity. This Islam got right, even if their means of obtaining this have been wholly wrong. Pacem in Terra, peace on earth, the world to come, shall not arrive until us as a race understand this. You on the extreme left and on the extreme right have brought forth some of the most deranged, tyrannical ideals of any generation yet in our history. It is up for us now to meet in the middle where reality resides. It is my hope some may hear this, that they may save this earth. It is not that selfishness is innately evil, no more than selflessness, but rather that the West has been wholly immersed in itself, has wholly immersed itself in it. It is the greed of America and Western capitalist society that creates the echelons of upper and lower class, the stratification of rich and poor that divides our society today. The great fodder of Eastern hatred, rather, I feel both doctrines are necessary and mutually beneficial, when seen as two sides of the same coin. Only when upon merged and married will the battle between East and West end, and class warfare be a thing of the past. To Tyler Robertson, my heart bleeds for that young man, that child who this whole nation is about to lynch, whose family told him to turn himself in after he cried suicide, and they handed him over and all of their money. In his name, they abandoned him, leaving town in shame. Shame on you. It is filthy what you have done to your son. If I could, I'd be a father to him. I would be a father to him. If I could be a father, I would be one to him. He's wiser than Donald Trump, Charlie Kirk, or any of the buffoons our nation now follows. For him, I burn my flesh. A brief quote from Bertrand Russell. How corrupt and ignorant leaders rise to power. Children are instinctively hostile to anything odd in other children, especially in the ages 10 to 15. The intolerance of eccentricity that I'm speaking of is strongest in the stupidest children, who tend to regard peculiar tastes of clever children as affording just grounds for persecution. When the authorities are also stupid, which may occur, they will tend to side with the stupid children and acquiesce, at least tactically, sorry, I've been reading a long time, in rough treatment for those who show intelligence. In that case, a society will produce in which all the important positions will be won by those whose stupidity enables them to please the herd. Such a society will have corrupt politicians, ignorant schoolmasters, policemen who are criminals, and judges who condemn innocent men. Such a society, even if it inhabits a country full of natural wealth, will in the end grow poor from inability to choose able men for important posts. Such a society, though it may prate of liberty and even erect statues in her honor, will be a persecuting society which will punish the very men whose ideas may save it from disaster. All this will spring from the too intense pressure of the herd, first at school and then in the world at large, where such excessive pressure exists. Those who direct education are not, as a rule, aware that it is an evil indeed. They are quite apt to welcome it as a force making for what they believe is good behavior. We, Tyler Robertson, the outcasts of the world, are these intelligent children you have cast out and sentenced to death. Because of your ignorance, your civilization will collapse because of it. You choose a rapist for a world leader, I am now wise to and go against. To Tyler, and this is the very end here, I think. Shit, I got 3 pages left. How about that? To Tyler Robertson in plea for his insanity, plea for his innocence. I do propose an innocent plea to Tyler Robertson's lawyer. There, according to law, differentiates killing from murder. According to Tyler Robertson, he was protecting the innocent, namely his lover and other oppressed people. Though this does not absolve the fact Charlie Kirk is dead, it does establish motive, that his intentions were not murderous, but protecting people within his heart. Perhaps dissociatively he was not mentally sound, and cannot be held culpable. If he is in fact criminally insane, as the far right portends, of his sexuality and psychological profile, then he should be admitted to a mental hospital, not executed. If he was in fact defending his spouse or other transgender individuals from bigotry and bigoted dogma and bullying, he too is innocent. I implore you, men of reason, make up your minds. This child should not be executed. That is my plea of insanity. However insane I feel even saying that word. The reason for my cover art is simple. This is my philosophy and my confession. Self-mutilation, gender dysphoria, both are pathological sexual abuse and trauma. And mutilation is a way to make it visible and tangible because of the fragmentation of memories that are hidden away from the conscious thinking subject and the soul. However many may be, however may be, and to that, psychologically, this may occur through indoctrination. Tyler extroverted this pain in protest. He lashed out, but was a victim too. Perhaps we could grow from the pettiness of retribution and forgive it. It should be a crucifixion in Utah and not a firing squad. When I was stuttering that out, even if Tyler wasn't physically touched by anyone, the indoctrination of extreme left wokeism, it's enough. He grew up in it. It's the same thing as having parents teach children really perverted things. And maybe his parents weren't like that. And maybe they were. Who knows? But this is what I'm saying. To you, Donald Trump, there is one reason I see you unworthy of your power. You are not wise. What made America great is we were tolerant. This has now ended. The problem with the making America great again lies in our origins. The expansion of the West was called our manifest destiny, and was based on the premise that America was a new promised land to its settlers, and one in the same with ancient Egypt. In the story of ancient Egypt, and the story of ancient Egypt goes back to the battle of Horus and Set. American settlers view the natives as the children of Set, and the Caucasian settlers as descendants of Horus. The ideal arose that they were entitled to the land and resources regardless of who had lived here first. The natives were driven out, pushed down the Trail of Tears, and enslaved and exploited in the missionary system, raping them of cultural identity and the physical substance of life itself. Many of these natives are who we now call the Mexican people today. Regardless of what is now believed of the West and the purity of its conquest, it is no different than the Inquisitions and much worse, the genocide. The idea Thomas Jefferson thought up, drawing from the ancient origins of Cyrus the Great and all nations of human dignity in the Cyrus cylinder. Those that followed him ushered forth not the great phantasm of American greatness, but an aborted fetus that has devolved and pushed forward to this day. America was not based on the notion of republic nationalism, and certainly not empirical domination, but was, in my opinion, the template for a republic that would lead the way to the tolerance of a global community based on the idea of tolerance. This was the nature under the rule of Cyrus the Great, and the vision of Thomas Jefferson that simply was never brought to fruition. If we are to break terms with the inherent ignorance and sinfulness of these primordial transgressions, we must atone our karma and restore the balance between ourselves and these native peoples and territories of the South and the East. As much like in Palestine, there is a similar dynamic. East and West, North and South, above and below, must be married to atone the grand fissure of civilization. Pharaoh Trump, I am an interpreter of dreams. Seek my counsel to abate this nightmare that lays before you. A great famine grows near. If you wish to be a world leader, to be the leader of a free nation, rule over yourself. You do not occupy the office of a monarch or a dictator. Stop acting like it. It's the fact that we do not behave as our enemies that makes us better than them. Regardless of what we think of Charlie Kirk, he did the right thing. He opened a forum for people to speak from both sides of the dialectic. Perhaps he did it the wrong way, but I still see him as noble. Hear me now. I do not say prove me wrong. but meet me in the middle. Meet in the middle. Without this, I do know what our future may be. This last little portion here is about the State of the Union address, which was a total load of horse shit. And now you're going to know why. As to the State of the Union address, as to this recent address of President Trump claiming responsibility for the recent peace accord between Israel and Palestine, he is a fucking thief and a liar. I have been blacklisted since the Biden administration for political activism, writing to Elon Musk, the White House, the Israeli Times, and several other news agencies since the dawn of the Ukraine invasion, forecasting and prophesying every single event to usher forth and guiding the Western world leaders in response, resolving peace treaties on my site and on the web. It is not only the only thing he has claimed is greatness or stole or covered up. What he did with this guidance, I do not approve. It is a bastardization of my every ideal. He is a tyrant and no longer to be trusted. I elected him as president because of the necessity, namely to protection of Israel, for the endurance of Western ideals and strategic knowledge which he has gained from business. Beyond this, the man is worthless. To human ethics, the moral compass, of the discernment of political power, if I could oust him, I would. For now, let it be enough that this knowledge is known. As well, I have advised our president on my site not to tear 20% of our immigrant population in half, namely Mexico, but to engage in nation building and assist the president of Mexico in fighting the cartels with our own military, not raid schools, cars, houses, innocent civilians, and terrorize immigrants and the poor. If this should take place, you know where this has come from. It is what should have happened from the start. I urge you, Pharaoh Trump, repent and return the innocent to their homes. This Gestapo police state action by our government may lead to our demise. You, sir, will be responsible. Step down or step aside. You are not respected nor wanted, not to anyone aware of your behavior or actions. They are deplorable. Even a king would be beheaded, as the French did on Bastille Day. Wake up and own up. If the people still want you, I am ashamed of them. I do not believe they do any longer, and I certainly don't. A fucking men. In closing, I am proud of the people of Iran. They are a noble people. I find them worthy of the marriage to Israel. To the people of Iran, I call to you. You came, forward and victorious. You have won. You are worthy to be married to my people. Persia too is my people. I am your true herald, Zarathustra.